We're recapping an expert mock. We got 2 of those today. That's kind of sweet, actually. Double dip here on this 2 for Tuesday. 2 experts. Actually, it's 1 mock. 2 experts, 1 mock. Close enough. Welcome to Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. I'm Dan Vespers at Dan Vespers on Twitter, at Old Man Squad on Twitter and TikTok, at Old Man Squad Fantasy over on Instagram, because I'm too dumb to get the same handle at all 3 places. Please, before you do anything else, throw a like on this bad boy. You know the stuff. Comment, whatever, subscribe, 5-star, all that nonsense. I've lost track of what I was talking about. I just wanted to talk to this dude. So I'm done with my intro. At Adam G Stock. Got to get that G in there, man. That's G.
Yeah, I don't know who Adam Stock is, but I'm not happy with him.
No. Did you try just Adam Stock on social
media?
No,
I originally had it as Elite Fantasy Basketball, and then when I went over to switch to my name, somebody had snuck it in 2020, I think. So I had 7 years to do it, but I just wasn't thinking properly.
So close. He is, of course, the founder of Elite Fantasy Basketball, as you just heard. He is, and this is kind of fun, actually, because we had Thunder Dan on earlier today, the 2021 FSWA Basketball Writer of the Year. Adam, you were the 2020. So I got you guys back to back in the flipped order on today's show. How's the run-up going for you, man? You hanging in there? Your eyes starting to... I mean, my eyes are starting to droop a little bit. I got some stomach pain, but we're hanging in there over on this end.
Honestly, barely. To be completely honest, I went to a chiropractor this morning because my upper back was such a mess.
Broken my pants.
So, yeah, I'll probably grind it out for another couple of weeks and then probably take another trip back to the chiropractor, see how I'm doing, see if I'm still alive.
You got to go standing desk. I hear those are great. I don't have one, but I hear they're great.
Yeah, no, it'd be good, but I've always had foot problems too, so I don't know if that would work for me. Just in general, there's no. I don't know. I just throw my life away for 3 months a year during a fantasy basketball busy season. It's worth it, but holy heck, I'm probably gonna live to 60.
Oh, Adam, you are truly a member of the Old Man Squad. Can't do.
I know. I don't know if I had this much gray 2 months ago.
It's coming in. Now. It's all right. You'll be.
I'm going to be drafting Al Horford and Jimmy Butler in no time.
I'll get you, baby. Oh man, can't do a sitting desk because his back hurts. Can't do a standing desk because his feet hurt. I feel like I'm doing that scene from Happy Gilmore. Well, now your back's gonna hurt because you just pulled landscaping duty. This show is brought to you by our buddies at Bet Online, the world's most trusted betting platform, and your number one source for everything football, soon basketball. Bet Online is every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. Think you know your stuff? Get in on the $200,000 mega contest. Pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200K. When the game's over, head on to the online casino, drop in on some blackjack, some poker, or unwind with over 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Bet Online. The game starts here. Adam, you were the lucky so-and-so who ended up with a pick on the turn in the draft. We're going to be recapping today. This is an expert 9-cat Roto mock. But as I've said to everybody so far, and I'm curious your thoughts on this question, most of the folks that I've talked to, and we're approaching about half, I think, of the names in it, have said that they actually, the tweaks they made from head-to-head where Roto were not as big as the tweaks they made from unlimited games to games cap format in terms of risks they were willing to take, things along that nature, as opposed to this is a head-to-head guy. I have to lean hard into a punt build right out of the chute. Is that something you felt translated to you or not as much because you were in the 12 slot and maybe that's the spot where it's the most different drafting between head-to-head and Roto?
Yeah, no, it does change it. It's a tricky situation being at 12 because it's harder to punt in Roto, but also you have to do something to make up the gap between 1 and 2 and 12. You can't just bank on outdrafting the top guys, especially if they know what they're doing, especially in Roto where you're only starting 10 guys too, so the later rounds don't matter as much. So me personally, I did punt, but I went for a softer punt of assist where I wasn't aiming to have a 1. I was aiming to have a 4. I opted for a soft punt because I was really worried about having that second week category. I didn't want to have my steals tank, which can be an issue in punt assist if you really lean into it, just because so many of the good steals options are strong assist options. So yeah, I would say I definitely approached it differently, but at the same time, I was using a lot of the strategies that I normally use in a head-to-head league.
If this was head to head, would you have gone a harder assist punt, you think, or not really much of a difference there?
Probably. I don't think it would have changed my early picks too much, but later on, there's probably one or two I would have changed for sure.
Okay. Cool. And this is the stuff that tickles me. Your first two picks, by the way, 12 and 13, Donovan Mitchell and Devin Booker. Walk me through that pairing and why not any of the other guys behind Devin Booker as well?
Sure. Yeah, so this is a pairing that kind of stood out to me when I was doing my pairing guides and putting together some of my sample teams. It's just really well rounded for around the turn. One of the big things this year that I noticed in terms of category scarcity, steals are really hard to find. So I definitely wanted to get a steals guy right off the bat. And really, the only option for that in that range, at least in terms of a guy being clearly above average, is Mitchell. So Mitchell was the guy I locked in right away. And I was thinking, okay, who complements Mitchell? And I was like, okay, I want some percentages because Mitchell's field goal percentage is so. So I was a little worried about Steph dragging me down. He was the other guy I was thinking about. And I was also worried about Steph's steals hit. So I was going back and forth between Booker and Curry. I don't love Booker at 13, but he's a good fit for Roto, and he was a good fit for what I was trying to do. His assist rate's going to drop a little bit this year, so I don't think he's going to lose too much value if I'm doing a soft punt of assists. But he's also a nice guy to have in a soft punt. He is a guy who can maybe, instead of getting you a 1 in the category, maybe boost you up to a 4. So that was my thinking with pairing those two guys.
After you get through those two, and this is one of the lone advantages of having a pick on the turn, is that you have a lot of time between picks to think about what you want to do next. What's going through your mind as this thing is slow? And this was a slow draft, but even if it was a fast draft, you'd still have a lot of time comparatively. As this thing is sweeping through the whole second and most of the third round, what are you thinking you need to address as it gets back around to you?
Yeah, so obviously starting guard, I'm thinking, okay, can I get bigs in that range? And I was pretty sure I would get at least one. So if you look at the draft board here, the three I was deciding between were Towns, Mobley, and Adebayo. My ideal 1-2 here, this was before the Towns trade, but my ideal 1-2 here was Mobley and Towns. Just to, because I didn't want to take a double threes hit too. Again, I was just really paranoid to end up punting a second category on top of assists. So while I'm taking Mobley, a low threes guy, more than likely, I wanted to stay near the top of the standings in that. So that's why I pivoted to Bane. Like he's honestly pretty similar to Towns, except for the rebounds, at least the Minnesota version of Towns. So it was a nice kind of pivot there. So when I was making my 1-2, it's tricky this year because you think, if I don't think a big's going to be there in 3-4, like I could be in trouble. But also at 1-2, there isn't really a big there that you can take anyway. So you're almost guaranteed. Like Chet went 13, but I would not take Chet at 13. And
would you consider? Sorry to jump in.
Argue Towns now, I think.
Would you consider? Sorry to jump in on you, Adam. Would you consider Sabonis as someone you could think about at the beginning of the second round? No, not as. I see you shaking your head.
Oh no, definitely not in Roto. I mean, his appeal is he's going to play a lot of games. He's got a high floor, but with DeMar coming in, I don't think his ceiling's that high. Probably going to be a top 30-ish guy. In head-to-head, you can get away with that with some good punts. In Roto, it's just tough to take a top 30-ish guy 13.
Where do you think your team stands after your first 4? Because you mentioned everybody. You went Bane on top of Mobley. Now you basically have like 3 shooting guards and a power forward center hybrid. How are you feeling about your team? What do you feel like you need to do next? Or, and this is the flip side of this, because like for some of us, and typically this is kind of more the way that I play it, and for better or worse, again, I don't think there's a right way and a wrong way here. I'm not thinking that hard about what I do and don't have after 2 or 3 rounds. I'm usually just hunting guys that I think can be values and then kind of filling in a little bit later. But of course, also people know I'm not a big punt guy. So where do you stand from that standpoint? After 4 picks, you kind of have your core now.
Yeah, when I'm stuck on the turn, I'm always thinking 2 picks ahead. Like I'm always trying to figure out what's going to be there in 20, 22 picks.
Yeah, good luck.
I wouldn't say like that's not how I decide on who I pick. I'm going to pick the guys I like, especially in the early rounds. Maybe in the later rounds, you can start worrying about fit a little more. But yeah, I'm always thinking about what's going to be there next. Just because it's easy to get yourself in trouble when there's that much of a gap. If you're looking at it, you're like, oh, it's 50-50. The type of guy I want is going to be there. Like that's tricky. That might change. That might change my decision at my current picks. The turn is just tough. I think you just
it really is.
Think ahead. Yeah.
Do you like if you don't get, let me rewind the way I want to ask that question, because this is something that someone posed to me in a YouTube question. I thought this might be a good topic to just do a whole show on, but just like out of curiosity, since you sort of clicked a switch in my brain when you were talking about what you were looking for in the third round. Are you hunting a player archetype when it gets around to you, or are you looking more for like these are just the type, like these are the four guys that I like that often go in this range? How does that part of the infinite matrix work for you on draft night?
Yeah, a little bit of B for sure.
Right.
Like I picked Vassell in 5, and this is pre-injury, of course. But there's other guys in that range who are similar, just off the top of my head. Tobias, Brandin Miller is a little different, but somewhat similar. So there's guys like that where I would be happy with it. But again, those guys are all somewhat different. So then you got to think, okay, how is this going to change my later picks? So again, I never view a pick as just that pick in a volume. I'm always thinking ahead and thinking of how it fits with my entire team.
Yeah, I keep wondering if I'm doing it wrong, because I tend to go more pretty hard the other way, where I'm more like, these are guys I like taking in this range, and they're not at all similar to one another. Like an example for my team, at least, was the fourth round. The two players I was looking at 4-5 were Derek White and Miles Turner. Not even remotely close to one another, and not even really tied to what I'd done with my team. I was just like, these are the two guys I want. If one of them's not there, I'm going to take the other. Rhett took Derek White, so I was left with sort of the one guy I wanted left. Instead of, I didn't go hunting for someone who was similar to Derek White, even though maybe that's what my team needed more. And I don't know. There's just like, this is what makes my brain get. I find this stuff so fascinating this time of year. To understand how people like, do you look for a particular type, and then you have like a B option of that type, and that's what you were mentioning with the big men.
Yeah, there's just endless permutations. Like really, so like my approach with that would be, I would have a plan if I go White, like what does that mean for later rounds, and if I go Turner, of what would I do for the later rounds? That's kind of how I approach that. Like I'm looking at my team, I knew I had to take a big there too, so that's another pick that's kind of like a type.
And you went Isaiah Hartenstein, by the way, just so we can clear that up. It's 61. Yeah. This is pretty early on Hartenstein. I don't hate it, but it is spicy.
So basically, this was because I was stuck on the turn. I got 22 picks before my next one, and I'm looking at who's in that range, and it's like 80% of the mid-round picks. So I know if I don't take a big here, I'm going to get stuck picking getting the scraps. Like I won't get a guy I like. So even though Hartenstein is an amazing value at 61, it was like, okay, in Roto, I like him the most. Like I just have to take him. If I don't take him, then I miss him, and I end up with someone like Zubac, who I took later.
You did, by the way,
which is funny. But like, I don't want him to be like. I want Zubac to be my third big instead of my second big kind of deal. So, and Hartenstein's a great fit for Roto. Let's be clear too. This was another one where I was thinking about the soft punt of assists. Okay, he gets more assists than most bigs in that range. His steal rate is much better. He's decent at the line. So I was sitting there, and I was also thinking about Mark Williams. Again, this was before the injury.
Right.
And I was like, okay, Mark Williams is going to be better in blocks, but I think I can get blocks later. And Mark Williams is going to lead to a lot of hits in some categories that Hartenstein won't. So even though Mark Williams, like maybe at the time looked better, like looked like less of a reach, I would just plugging into my team. It just didn't seem like he was hurting me more than he was helping me versus Hartenstein with the stronger guard categories. That wasn't the case.
And this may be a hard question to answer, so feel free to just sort of dust it off and go to the next thing. But have we now hit the point where you've changed your strategy a bunch because it's Roto, or are we still in the like sort of small tweaks of maybe trying to hang in there a little bit more in that worst category as opposed to going to whatever this other direction might be?
Yeah, it was kind of around 7 where that happened to be. It was like, oh, I'm a little more balanced than I was planning to be. But at the same time, in this draft, there were no drops to my spot. Usually when you're picking 12, you get the odd drop. But with this draft, like nothing. It was very frustrating because I thought I'd get a free pick here and there that could just boost me. But it didn't happen. I thought I was making some pretty tough decisions every single time.
7 and 8 on this pocket. As long as we're looking, you sort of gave me a segue there. Jordan Poole at pick 84, Ivica Zubac at pick 85. After you said, "Oh no, I almost got stuck with Ivica Zubac," you got stuck with Ivica Zubac. Yeah. But there's a big difference between at 61 and at 85. Again, we've talked these players into oblivion, but strategically, what was the thought process for why you added these guys to the mix?
Yeah, so I was starting to slip a bit in points and threes, and I knew I needed to be slightly above average them at least. So Poole was nice there, and then I was like, you know what? Like if I get Poole here, I'm pretty sure I'm getting 4 and assists. It's going to be a turnovers hit, but I'm doing well in turnovers because I'm soft punting assists. It's going to be field goal percentage hit, but I know the bigs are going to be there over the next few rounds where I can make up that hit. So that one was kind of the turning point for my draft where I started to feel like pretty good about it. The first 6 rounds is like, this is pretty middle of the pack. Like, yeah, I have an excuse because I'm 12, but I still want to find a way to do a little better than that. So Poole just kind of checked every box at that point, even though he's not the most amazing Roto guy. He was just such an obvious fit for my team needs that I went for it.
And at that point, I mean, you do still like your team wasn't that big week. It's not great, obviously, with Mobley and Hartenstein only. Did you feel like in the 8th round, you absolutely positively needed to get one more big man?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the next couple rounds, there's almost no bigs going there. I can't see the full screen, but it looks like mostly guards. Yeah, exactly. And I don't really want to take Nurk because of the free throw percentage hit.
Yep.
In Roto, so I was definitely thinking big. Really, after round 4, I was looking at my team and I was like, I think if I just go small, big, small, big, small, big the rest of the way, that will work out. And I kind of did that until the bench. Until the bench when I just started going for value.
Right. You went with another big man actually in the 12th, and we can cluster a couple of these guys together. Actually, let me just read off the last 5 here, and then we can kind of attack them as a grouping. Daniel Gafford was the end of the 9th round, which is around where he's going these days. So if that's a guy you're targeting, this is basically where you got to get him. Brandin Podziemski to start the 10th. Dante DiVincenzo, again, pre-trade to finish off the 11th. Jeremy Sochan to start the 12th. And then you had the Mr. Irrelevant pick, which was Gary Trent Jr. How do you decide when it's time to start ignoring your own team and pay attention to flyery upside, kind of like, can we catch lightning kind of stuff? Or does that never happen for you? Are you always aware of what a team need might be? Because it feels like, again, maybe the answer lies somewhere in between, but like, the last 2-3 picks often end up on waiver wires anyway. So how do you balance that part?
Yeah, no, really after round 4, I was trying to avoid taking any picks that I didn't think could outplay their ADP by a couple of rounds. And again, that's just if I had Jokic, I would probably play it a little safer.
Yeah.
But at 12, it's like, give me Gafford, like give me that guy I know has that crazy high gear, even though he's not guaranteed to hit it. Although I do think Gafford was being like slept on like considerably. People are like, his minutes are going to be so low. His minutes were super low last year too.
Yeah, he can do it. He can do it in like 20.
Yeah, if it's 26, 22, that's amazing. 20, it'd still be mid-round in probably. He was top 30 in like 23. So yeah, don't shy away from Gafford. So yeah, most of my picks, like, yeah, I was thinking fit, but just having the 12th pick, it was in my head the entire time. It was like, I need to make up this ground somehow. And no one's falling to me where it's just going to give me an obvious boost. So I need to take some swings and hopefully 2 or 3 hit.
What do you think you're going to get out of these last 3 or 4 guys?
I'm pretty sure Gafford's going to be okay. I mean, the only way he gets in trouble is if Kleba plays more than he should.
Boo! I
Which
say
I mean is possible, but Kid was also talking about how Gafford's going to get some starts, so I'm not too worried about that. The Warriors love Podziemski. Um, hopefully that results in 32 minutes. If he ends up being 29, he's going to be so. But I do like him in Roto because you're getting rebounds from a guard, which is rare. Like there, in terms of the counting categories, there shouldn't be too many holes in his line. They're talking about up in his threes. I kind of believe that when I see it. You can't really say, "Oh, we want him to take 8 to 10 threes." Well, he's not a good 3-point shooter. Why would you have him take
That's
them?
a
Like
lot. That's
that's a
also
lot.
just
That's Luka territory. Yeah. First of all, it's dumb. Like he's not taking that many. Like stop saying that. And like your offense isn't going to be very good if he does that. So we'll see. But if he can average even like 1.8, that'd be a nice boost. So I think he's got a chance to outplay that position, get inside the top 100. Dante, another one. He was at the Knicks, so that was a pure OG's going to get hurt at some point. And
well, what do you think about his new digs? What do you think about his spot in Mini?
I really like it. Mini's just starved for offense. So yeah, they got like Conley's there. He's gonna have some load management days. It sounds so like, but when you get beyond Ant and Randall, which is not the best 1-2 punch offensively already, they don't really have too much scoring. I know everyone loves Nas. He's good, but I think the hype's getting a little out of control there. They're definitely going to need Dante to play 28 plus at least, and he's probably going to have stretches where he's over 30.
Jeremy Sochan might be like the only player in basketball we haven't really talked about on this show already. Is this what's the you know what? Screw it. We're gonna go back to the old way of doing this. This is not a strategic question. This is just what do you think you might get out of Jeremy?
Yeah, I was debating between him and Portis. I probably should have picked Portis in retrospect just because he's a little safer. But even before the Vassell injury, I like Sochan's outlook. Like he's not the most exciting guy, but he's still super young, and he did improve after he moved off a point guard last year.
Yeah.
Like this could easily be a guy who gives you 12, 7, and 3.5, and a steal and a 3. That sounds pretty good to me at that price. I don't know if he's going to do too well in the rankings just because his percentages are mediocre. But in terms of counting stats, I think he's going to be one of the better sources of them in that range.
Gary Trent was your last pick, and this was before I think the Chris Middleton news, but I think we all know that Chris Middleton's body is decomposed.
Yeah, it's kind of baked in. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm less interested in like what you think the Gary Trent Jr. upside is because it's not a ton unless another player goes down. He's like a very safe, very boring late pick that I've definitely made myself because I'm a very safe, very late, boring human being. And more so, I'm interested in how this chunk of players, if you want to put Gafford in it as well, that's fine. Or if you want to just start at Podziemski and run to the end, how does this chunk of players correlate? Because this is a Roto draft, but would you have done things differently there if this was head to head? Is that the spot where you start looking for those really weird, like punt build fit guys to slot in at the end? Or are you still taking these sort of like the Podziemski, the Sochan, like take a shot kind of guys? And even if they're a bad fit, if they land, you can flip them for something else. Like, what's your move there?
No, I'm taking a shot still. I mean, when Sochan came up, was I thinking I need one more big? Like, yeah, I was. But it just so happened that I like him too. If there was a no-brainer guy who had dropped, it's hard. I guess it, yeah. Let's say there was someone where I would have taken them over Sochan. Like I like Sochan, I don't love him, but if there was a non-perfect fit, yeah, I would have gone for it for sure. I'm just looking at the map. It's like most of the guys I like in that range are big, so and
a lot of them were gone.
Yeah, exactly. Like I like Melton too, and after taking my last couple guys, I wouldn't really need him, especially if I was going Trent in 13. But I still probably would have taken him if he fell.
So thinking through just like the whole group of this, when you at Adam G Stock, when you're starting up, because you were talking about, and I want to loop almost all the way back to one of the first things you talked about in this draft, and then we'll start to wind this thing out. I don't want to take up too much time. You talked about this concept of the soft punt in Roto versus a more hard punt in head-to-head. How do you avoid ruining multiple categories in a hard punt? Because like a soft punt, it's easier to avoid ruining multiple categories because you're still trying to get some of those that punt category. You're still trying to just not be like bottom 2 in it. But when you're hard punting, say, let me take this draft for example, and you can feel free to play with the names as you see fit. If you had gone Donovan Mitchell, Devin Booker, would you go Donovan Mitchell, Devin Booker in a head-to-head league? Is that a pairing you'd also consider there?
Yeah, definitely. That's one of my preferred pairings around the turn. Now that Harden's probably going to go like around 10, 11 in most drafts.
Yeah, damn you, Kawhi Leonard might not be ready. News. Okay, so let's say you start with those same two guys on the head-to-head side, and are you now hard punting one of the things that they're not as good at, or are you still kind of soft punting at least a little bit longer?
Yeah, I would say you're still soft punting a bit. I guess in that situation, you could swap to punt field goal percentage, but also I don't know where you're going to find the bigs for that. So that would probably still end up with punt assists. Where it might have changed stuff was again in the middle rounds, like Mark Williams versus Hartenstein. I probably don't grab Poole if I'm punting assists. I probably look for different points in threes source there. So I don't think it changes too much early. Usually I find I'm really leaning into the punt in the middle rounds.
Love it.
Late rounds are more about upside.
That confirms a lot of things that I was hoping that you'd say in the answer to that question, because I feel like there's this intense desire, and like the evidence of this is just, look at page views kind of thing. I had no intention of doing a pairings podcast, and then a lot of people were like, you have to do one, and I was like, all right, fine, I'll do one. Guys that I put together, but like the disclaimer on that show, and I know Josh does one as well with a similar disclaimer, is like, you can do a lot of really interesting pairings in the first and second round because these guys are just good at fantasy basketball. And like, unless you put two guys together that are the exact same player twice, you probably can still see what the third and fourth rounds bring before you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I really am bad at assists now, or something along those lines. And maybe I'm simplifying what you said too much there, but that's the impression that I'm getting from a lot of the folks that I'm talking to is not, okay, like maybe this is an oversimplification to say, take guys you really, really like for the first few rounds and then see where you're at. But is that kind of like, if you were going to try to explain this concept to someone who is in their second season of fantasy basketball, is that a reasonable way to kind of pare it down?
I mean, it can work, but at the end of the day, if you're 1 and 2 pairs perfectly, your team's going to be stronger. So if you think the early guy is just like, this guy, I'm getting this guy 18th, and I think he's going to be 8th, then yeah, take him. But if you think it's just one of those guys who's like, he's a second rounder and he's going to finish in the second round, then I think you want to start thinking about the optimal pairing more. Just because like sometimes yeah, it's good to wait and see where the draft goes, but then a lot of the time you get to round 6 and you're like, oh crap, I have this hole here. I needed to fill it early, and now I can't because these categories aren't available late. Really, the solution is to just practice and prepare as much as possible for all the situations. So if you're early pairing, if you go with the option where you're like, I just like these two guys, and your early pairing leads to issues, you can recover. My biggest advice is don't wing it when it comes to pairing. Like, plan it going in and know what that pairing is going to mean in the later rounds.
If you were, this is my last question for you, and I want to go the negative direction on this one. If you're thinking about these first and second pairings, or even first, second, and third, what's a disaster scenario there? Not, and you don't even have to give me real names if you want. Just like from a categorical matching standpoint, what are you making sure you're not doing in those first couple of picks together?
That's a good question.
Yes, I know.
I think the worst thing you can do early is ignore category scarcity. If you go hard on the big man categories early, that's going to be really, really screw you. I know. Let's say you're a big check guy, could be a first round guy this year if he explodes on offense. You're like, I want to pair Chet with AD or something like that. Sounds cool. Like, could end up like really high in the punt assist rankings, but you're going to run into trouble later. You also want to avoid overkill early. That kind of relates to category scarcity. I remember in one of our industry drafts, someone paired Wemby with Chet, and I was like, man, I hate that. Like, there's just no need for that. Like, you're going to end up stronger than you need to be in blocks and weaker elsewhere than you should be.
Beautiful. Thank you. At Adam G Stock. I'm sorry, man. I had no intention of asking these questions that were like the real dig into the deepest corners of your brain stuff. But then sometimes we're talking and I'm like, this thing just hit my head and I have to shout it out. So I do appreciate you entertaining my weirdness. But again, this is, I don't know. Do you feel similarly that like looking at that side of it is the really interesting stuff? Like, we can all have our opinions on each individual player, but the infinite matrix, the fit, all that stuff, the strategy, what do you think about between each pick? That's the stuff that makes me tick. You too, or no?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of make my living off that, to be honest. That's kind of what the entire website is about. It's about the nitty gritty, kind of getting that advantage on the edges. Anyone can look at a sleeper list and be like, this guy's going to be good this year. But it's really about, especially in competitive league, it's a game of inches, especially these days where Yahoo has made their rankings so tight. You just can't, it's not like back in the day where you had fourth round guys in the ninth and stuff, and you can just pick them.
You mean ESPN?
Crush your league. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like, if you're in a competitive league, you got to get into the nitty gritty, or you're leaving it up to luck.
Yep, you're going to get lapped by somebody. What you got going on right now? I know you said you're trying to power through like another week and a half before you fall on your face and your toes, your feet and your back go out completely. But what can folks expect if they visit Elite Fantasy Basketball right now?
You can expect basically everything to already be available. All the pumping guides are out.
That's great.
The pairing guides are out. Top 150s are out for basically all settings, 9, 8 points. Best ball this year, that's new, Roto. So really, I know people think, oh, it's just like a head-to-head categories league site, but it's really not. Like, yeah, the site made its name on the punting guides, but it's a lot more than that. But as we talked about earlier, if you're into strategy, definitely a great site for you. This is for the real sickos. You know, it's great for beginners too. Like, it walks you through step by step. But if you're the type of person who really likes to get into the weeds, it's a really good site for you.
Adam G Stock, his back is out. His feet are sore. His fingers are locking up, but damn it, he's going to give you his freaking fantasy goodness. Adam, thank you so much, dude, for all the visits right now. I think we probably got time for like one more before the season starts, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know what the hell we're going to talk about, but there's always something.
Something pop up, yeah.
Damn right. All right, Adam, I'll talk to you in a bit.
All right, thanks.
I told him before we went on air, I was like, I don't have any hardball questions for you. And then I had a freaking hardball question for him, but Adam was ready for it. He got no problem with that. So avoid overkill and avoid missing out on the difficult categories early, which is assists and points and steals, weirdly enough, which, again, you know what? I'm not that surprised to hear that. And you guys know that watch this show, and a bunch of you have asked me to do a statistical scarcity episode. And I was like, honestly, guys, that's just not a thing that I deep dive as much. And if I did a show on that, it wouldn't be very good. But luckily, there are awesome fantasy analysts who do, like Adam, like Josh, like so many others. So check out their stuff. Listen, everything I do here is totally free. I don't need you to be tethered exclusively to me. But what that concept that Adam brought up on scarcity is, it does change. Not a ton. Assists is generally up there. There's generally a run on the better point guards early. But steals moving towards the top is kind of new and weird, in that it's not that guys that are steals specialists are going early. It's that the guys that are good at steals happen to also be good at a lot of other stuff. And then you have this like one little chunk of steals guys going right around pick 100, which is like Alex Caruso, who had 1.7 last year, and Herb Jones, who was at 1.4, and Jalen Suggs, who was at like 1.4 and change. And now Suggs might play more minutes, so maybe he gets up to 1.5 or 1.6 or something like that. But those are basically the steals guys that are fantasy draftable that are going later. And then you've got the like flyer types, Tari Eason, Dyson Daniels. Those guys might make an impact, but we don't. Marcus Smart, but we don't really know if the rest of their fantasy game is going to be enough to carry you in that category. And once you're past those guys, now you're into like the 1.1s and the 1.2s, which are good, but they're not the bump you up the standings type. You almost need to have like 1.5 steals guy or more, because at some point you're going to take a dude who's a guard who doesn't get that many. I don't know. There's a lot of them. Poole, Reeves, whatever. They pop into my head as they fly out of my mouth. Devin Booker, if you want to look near the top of the board. And that sets you behind, because there are a bunch of guards. Steph Curry, 0.7 steals, top flight guard. Devin Booker, 0.9 steals, top flight guard. These guys are floating around out there that make their fantasy headway in other stuff. Dame was 1 steal a game last year. James Harden was at 1.1. So you have to be thinking about that stuff as you work your way through, unless you get a center that gets a bunch of steals. That's a way to kind of cover it up a little bit. Things to think about as we weave our way through fantasy drafts. Another big thank you to Adam G. Stock of Elite Fantasy Basketball. Zoom in on his team and roll back and forth a little bit. Quick recap for those that forgot some of the players and where they went. Donovan Mitchell at I'll go by round. First round, Devin Booker in the second. This is on the turn, so basically all of these guys are round independent, at least for that pairing. Second grouping, third and fourth, Evan Mobley, Desmond Bane. 5-6 was Vassell and Hartenstein. 7-8, Poole, Zubac. 9 and 10, Daniel Gafford, Brandin Podziemski. 11 and 12, Dante DiVincenzo, Jeremy Sochan. And then Gary Trent Jr. was Mr. Irrelevant for this draft. Last pick of the 13th round, which, by the way, is a little weird that drafts have an odd number of rounds so that each team doesn't get to go first and last in a proper number. I know that having the first pick of the 13th round is not that big of a deal, and like not having to deal with the last pick of the 14th round. But isn't it a little bit weird that like these leagues don't have third round reversal built in and whatever? To be continued on that. That's a fight for another day. I'm Dan Vespers for Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. Please make sure to check out everything we're doing. We got shorts flying around these days. Not the clothing, YouTube shorts, like short videos, but I could take a pair of shorts and throw them into the air if you guys wanted that to happen as well. Our guest today, again, was Adam G. Stock on social media. Adam Stock of Elite Fantasy Basketball. Old Man Squad is our feed on TikTok. Old Man Fantasy on Instagram. Old Man Squad on Twitter is basically where we send out links to all of our other shows on the Old Man Squad network, which, by the way, we have an announcement that I forgot to make earlier in the day, and I'll try to remember to do it earlier in a show at some point in the next little bit. We have added a partnership here at Old Man Squad with the good folks at FBI Basketball, Fantasy Basketball International. They will be running the Old Man Squad Listener Leagues, and I believe there's some information in the show description. If not, I can put it out on social. That's also doable. Those leagues are going to have a variety of different buy-ins. A little bit of that buy-in money goes to charity, which is awesome. The FBI folks run terrific fantasy leagues. They're extraordinarily organized. You just drop into their Discord. That's how you figure everything out. It's how you can communicate with folks. They're just like, it's seamless, man. They've been doing it for so long. And on the other direction, couple of their shows are going to be part of the Old Man Squad network. So our buddy Adam King, he's bringing his show, Balls Deep Podcast, over to the Old Man Squad network. Noah Rubin, Tank Me Later, Dynasty Pod, that's going to be part of our network as well. So just a really fun partnership. We're going to be helping promote some pods that are excellent shows. They're going to be helping us run in some leagues. We're going to be making sure that everybody gets to view all of our cool stuff. So very excited about that and the continued growth of the Old Man Squad network, which is heavily thanks to you guys. You guys have supported me throughout the years and certainly right now. And then also these other hosts that reached out, most of them to me when I broke off, decided to do my own thing. I was like, man, what the hell do I do now? And a lot of folks like, Dan, let's do something together. And I was like, hell yeah. I wanted to reach out to you, but I was too bashful about it. And I didn't want to force myself on folks. because, fantasy podcasting is all about consent. Something that we're making sure to work with our 7 and 4-year-old children about. All right, we're 40 minutes deep, and a lot of that was just me talking about random nonsense. Thanks for watching. Please remember to hit that like button. Comment if you have any thoughts you want to talk to Adam about, if you have thoughts on his team, if you want to get to me, that's all good. If you're listening after the fact and you want to comment, do it over on the YouTube page. Subscribe, leave that review, and we'll be back with you guys again tomorrow. We'll have a mock draft on Wednesday. I haven't decided what else is going on tomorrow, but I'm pretty sure we're going to have a mock. Do I have a guest that I'm forgetting? Of course I do. Dan, you idiot. Dynasty Maven Matt Lawson is first thing tomorrow morning. So then we'll probably do a mock in the afternoon. Get it together, Dan. What a schmuck. All right. I'll see you guys tomorrow. So long, everybody.